Charles and William, father and son, heirs to a kingdom like characters in a Shakespeare play, they have lived through more tragedy and change than most families could ever contemplate. The scandal of a royal divorce and the untimely death of a mother. Charles's controversial second marriage to Camilla, the woman Diana blamed for her unhappiness. These events could have broken the love of these two men, yet they have remained visibly fond of each other. It seems that adversity has only strengthened their bond. A warm-hearted son to his father, William has been no less generous to his sometimes troubled younger brother, Harry.
Harry has completed his training and is now in the army, effectively. That means that he can't spend every weekend with his beloved papa as he once did down at Highgrove. But I think they get on well, the three of them. I mean, they've come together pretty much through thick and thin. You think back only 9 years to Princess Diana's death. Charles was the single parent, and he's done a pretty good job of raising them.
A confidant to his mother, William, at the age of 15, had his world riven asunder by her tragic death. Unlike William, Charles is often perceived as eccentric and extravagant. His aides put toothpaste on his toothbrush for him, and he has an old-fashioned image.
Prince Charles is actually an old fogey 57-year-old. Prince Charles is old for his age, and I think William's a bit young for his age.
Along with Diana's charisma and film star looks, William has inherited her strong will. This obstinacy can create difficulties for his advisors.
Diana was very stubborn, and William is as well. It's very interesting that William will not be railroaded into anything. He will put his foot down, dig his heel in, and he will not budge or be budged by anyone.
By going to Sandhurst, Britain's military academy, William accepted royal convention and followed his father's advice. In his private life, he has chosen a woman very unlike his father's less suitable choices. Kate Middleton is a thoroughly modern and practical young woman who could one day be queen.
Probably 99.9% certain that Kate and William will marry. Kate brings many things to William that make his life meaningful and special. William, being the very stubborn man that he is, will not be hurried into any decision until he is full and ready for it.
Unlike Charles, William is a man of his time. He's in touch. Perhaps it's here that the real possibility of rivalry could emerge. William is already gaining an image better suited to a future king of the modern nation Britain is fast becoming. Charles has worked hard to overcome the public hostility he faced at the time of his divorce and in the aftermath of Diana's death. He and his sons present a united front. However, opinion polls are often against Charles's accession to the throne in favour of William's.
If anyone is unhappy with the dynamic, it will be Charles. But having said that, he's very generous. He likes to share the limelight with the boys. He wants them to be popular. He feels it's important that they learn about the kind of life they've got in the future.
An autumn afternoon in London. Press cameramen and television crews await the arrival of Prince William to officially open a new baby unit at St Mary's Hospital. The crowds give him a warm welcome. The occasion is a very poignant one for Prince William. It was here that he was born 24 years ago. On these steps, he was presented to the world by his proud parents. Harry was born at St Mary's 2 years later. William has returned to open the neonatal unit, which cares for premature babies. Destined for a life very different to most people, his easy royal manner and his youthful personality are very reminiscent of his mother's.
Awesome. And so when do you think, when will they be able to go home?
Well, they've got to be big enough to be able to take all the feeds on their own.
Yeah.
So that it won't be for self-warm without any help.
Yeah.
So and put on weight, which
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
doing that already. So
I think being fed 12 times a day, I think anyone put on weight, definitely.
definitely, yes.
Very important.
Yes.
Awesome. And they're very snug.
It's very comfortable.
There's a lot of Diana in William, and I'm sure Charles is probably the first person to see it.
William's formal introduction to public duties came on St David's Day, March the 1st in 1991. He was 8 years old, almost the same age as Charles when he was created Prince of Wales. William learned how to respond to the crowds.
He's doing ever so well.
Both parents introduced the shy William to the people of Wales, but it was his mother who guided him and mentored his progress. 15 years on, William is making solo visits. His royal career is now split between military training and carefully selected events such as this. Until he is king, his role is to see and be seen by the people of Britain and the far-flung Commonwealth. He began solo engagements representing the Queen in New Zealand in 2005. A year later, he has mastered the delicate balance between friendliness and keeping a royal dignity on these occasions. For the rest of his life, the press will be nearby, watching and recording his every public moment. Once reluctant to accept his royal duty, William has matured and learned to make use of his commanding presence. He is said to become one of Britain's tallest and best-looking kings. His mother was once called the jewel in the crown. Her role has been inherited by her elder son. He is considered the great hope of the monarchy. William's natural magnetism is something most politicians can only envy.
How you doing? Hello. Sorry to keep you all waiting. Oh. I'll try and keep on time next time, be better.
His childhood shyness has gone, but this relaxed style of his mid-20s has not come easily.
I think he's practiced to feel at ease. I don't think he always does. I think if you can just look at his cheeks, they flush up a little bit every time he goes on a public job. I think he is still slightly nervous at the enormity of the task. I was there years ago when he did his first major public outing in Canada, when he saw all these girls saying, "We love you, William." He doesn't like it, but at the same time, William loves the job that he's got to face in the future. He knows he's got a lot of responsibility, and I think he does a good job when he goes out and does public duties.
In 2006, Charles and Camilla made an official visit to Pakistan, an ally in the battle against terrorism. This was a serious mission to defuse international tensions. But the media revived memories of Diana's solo tour 15 years ago. Charles's peace initiative was undermined by comparisons between Camilla's and Diana's clothes. Long after her death, Diana can still overshadow Charles. William cuts a more striking and impressive figure than his father.
I do think that Diana, if she could see William today, would think that he's got a lot of Spencer in him. First of all, he's got her steely determination. He wants what he wants when he wants it, and he gets what he wants normally.
William and Harry's relationship with Diana didn't evolve beyond that of child and parent. Her untimely death meant that they never had the chance to form an adult relationship with her. In their memories, she is still the vibrant and attentive mother who found time to share their youthful adventures and activities. Trying to compensate for a broken home, she often accompanied them on daredevil adventures like this whitewater rafting holiday. There were frequent trips to faraway locations, such as film star Goldie Hawn's ranch in Colorado, where the boys could race around on quad bikes. Some might think that the young princes were rather spoiled by Diana's indulgence, and that they developed a worrying taste for speed and thrills. As well as driving cars, William is fond of motorbikes. Prince Charles is unhappy about the risks involved.
William likes to ride his motorbike because when he's got his helmet on, he's totally anonymous and people, you know, don't notice him on the road. But naturally, like any parent, his father doesn't approve of the motorbike. He's been very reluctantly allowing him to have one. But, you know, William's old enough and sensible enough to take care of himself on the road, and he doesn't take unnecessary risks.
William went to St Andrews University in Scotland after his gap year. His father had gone to Cambridge on inferior grades, but William won his university place fairly. The media were more focused on his romantic than his academic life. Some helpfully paraded society beauties whom he might like to date. Queen-making became a press pastime. But William made his own friends. He took a group of them on a luxurious cruise. This glossy posse of young people from well-connected backgrounds were all delighted to be part of William's elite circle.
Being close to or a member of the royal family is almost like having some kind of magic dust all over you. You can be as famous as you like, but if you have a title or in with the royals, then it's that little bit extra that really makes it special.
Among that group are the Palmer Tompkinson sisters, Santa on the left and her livelier sister Tara. Their parents were old friends of Charles, and Tara liked to make the best of her royal connections. She became an A-list celebrity.
Tara Palmer Tompkinson is a perfect example of somebody who's become famous just by being associated with the royal family. She comes from a wealthy family and had access to all the right places. She's good looking. A lot of men find her very attractive. A lot of women found her very interesting and wanted to know what she was up to, and all of a sudden she's everywhere.
Tara gained a flirtatious image, which she did little to discourage. She also admitted drug problems, which she struggled to overcome. Her lifestyle and frequent appearances in gossip columns led to whispers about the extent of her royal friendships. She was wrongly linked with William, several years her junior. Unwisely, she drew attention to the rumours by giving an interview.
I think a lot of people thought it was a way of bringing attention to herself and reminding everybody of how close she is to the royals, to say that she hadn't slept with him.
Now happily married to Camilla and the drama of his life with Diana behind him, Charles must surely reflect on the past and what might have been if he had followed his heart in his youth and married Camilla when they first met. But as a young man, he led a very active bachelor life, enjoying many relationships away from public gaze. He relied on friends to provide a cover for his secret affairs. As Prince of Wales, he was a target for girls around the world. Every girl was scrutinised for her suitability. Glamorous blonde Davina Sheffield was a favourite contender until a previous lover revealed an affair. Lady Jane Wellesley didn't want to be Princess of Wales. Lady Tryon was already married. Jane Ward was divorced and out of the running. As the years slipped by and Charles's friends got married, Prince Philip wondered if Charles would ever find a bride.
Well, 30-odd years ago, when Prince Charles was playing the field, he dated a lot of girls, a lot of women came and went, and Philip was getting concerned because there was a lot of comment about it in the press at the time. Charles himself had sort of indicated at what sort of age he should be married. He said 30 was a good age. 30 came, 30 went. He was 31 before he met Princess Diana, Lady Diana Spencer, she then was. And there was no doubt there was some hesitation on Charles's part, principally because his friends thought she was unsuited for a life as a royal consort. And Charles picked up on all this confusion and doubt, but when he confided in his father about it, Philip felt that he'd led Diana up the garden path and had to go through with it. She had to be the one.
But Charles was still close to another woman, Camilla Parker Bowles. They met in their early 20s. She married someone else, but their long-time affair dominated her marriage and Charles's. Against expectation, William and Harry have accepted Camilla. She has wisely sidestepped the role of stepmother.
I think that's one role in which Camilla hasn't played a part at all. She entered the relationship and the marriage knowing full well that she could not take on the role as the stepmother to William and Harry, because she would be perceived as the wicked stepmother. There's nothing she could do to help. She'd also been raising her own children, don't forget, and she felt that Charles was best placed to continue the way he was raising the boys rather than for her to interfere, and she has stood back. She hasn't got involved.
I'm sure that William does understand why his father's so happy with Camilla. She is a person that's like a crutch for him, boosts his ego, and, you know, tells him he's wonderful every day. That's not the sort of job that sons like to take on. And, you know, she's the sort of person that's a buffer between them and their father, especially, I think, if they've done something that the father doesn't quite approve of. Camilla's got a son herself, and she understands that boys will be awful boys sometimes.
Diana and Charles broke with royal tradition by taking baby William on tour to Australia in 1983. They were both tactile parents who encouraged little William to have more freedom than royal children had in the past. Charles had a much closer bond with his children than his mother and father did with him. These now famous pictures of Charles waiting to greet the Queen after a long absence show his reactions. He seemed bemused by the formality of the occasion. At 8, Charles was sent to Cheam, a preparatory boarding school. Being educated away from the palace was considered progressive, but it meant more sad separations from his busy mother, burdened by the duties of state.
The Queen's been as good a mother as she has been able to do under the circumstances. She was 26-year-old mother of 2 when she was crowned, and one minute she had a family, the next minute she had a serious, nearly 24-hour job, and she had no chance to bring up her children. It seems to have had a very lasting effect, and they seem to have missed that bonding with their mother.
Gordonston, the public school on the shores of the Moray Firth in Scotland, might have seemed a good choice for Charles. It was Prince Philip's old school, and he had been happy there. With its emphasis on character building, it looked ideal. But it seemed remote and hostile to 13-year-old Charles. Set apart by royal birth, he was a target for bullies. Charles refused to send his son so far away. He and Diana chose Eton College, very near to the royal comforts of Windsor Castle. In theory, the outdoor activities and teamwork at Gordonston should have created confidence in the shy young Charles. But he was a late developer, and he didn't appreciate the school's ethos until the 6th form.
I didn't really ever enjoy school very much because I always preferred the things I did at home on the whole. But I still came to the conclusion towards the end of my time at Gordonston that the kind of education I'd received had been enormously valuable. It also concentrated on developing the whole person, you know, the mind and the body.
Whatever Charles's views, he refused to send his boys to his old school. William went to Eton in 1995. Harry followed 3 years later. William was an Eton schoolboy when his mother died. Despite the enormity of her loss, he made a success of his years there. It was a good choice for him.
First of all, William didn't have the horrendous schooling that Charles had when he was so unhappy at Gordonston. And William has been allowed to have so much more freedom than Charles did. He's queued up at Disneyland to go on the rides because his mother insisted that he be just like every other child. So William's had an enormous amount of time to enjoy himself, to lead a normal life, which his father never had.
Teenage William disliked public attention and tried to blend in with his schoolmates. He hoped to be concealed in a crowd, and friends often shielded him from prying eyes. At other moments, he held his head down or turned away, trying to avoid recognition. Eton's unrivaled facilities gave him the chance to shine at sports such as rowing, rugby and water sports, as well as in his academic work. He became a prefect and a house captain, and in the sixth form, captain of the school's swimming team, a sport at which his mother had also excelled in her school days. Becoming a godfather for the first time at 16 marked another step into adulthood. William carefully cradled Prince Constantine, the grandson of the deposed King of Greece, a close friend of Prince Charles. In contrast, Charles at 17 still looked boyish when he set off for Timbertop, an outpost of Geelong Grammar School in Australia, for 2 terms. This was one school he did enjoy.
It was a very sad moment, of course, leaving England and seeing one's father and sister standing on the tarmac and waving one goodbye. But I found the moment I got to Australia, the people were so friendly and so welcoming. And I must admit, I'd been apprehensive about going there because I'd heard of, the Australians were critical and would perhaps, showed their feelings. And I was worried about how I would appear to them. But I had absolutely no need to worry. It was a wonderful experience I've ever had, I think.
At 18, Charles went to Cambridge. It was the heyday of the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, but the Prince's appearance and interests were out of time with his own generation. He preferred the cello to the guitar. He was an image maker's nightmare. Another prince, another age. William was the coolest 18-year-old in the country. In 2002, the Queen celebrated her Golden Jubilee with a pop concert at Buckingham Palace. After Diana's death, the royal family had to be seen to be more in touch with ordinary people. Charles was there to enjoy the event with his sons and Camilla and other members of the royal family. They watched with varying levels of appreciation.
Well, we all like to think they've got a whole host of PRs and marketing men beavering away somewhere in central London. But in fact, the sad truth is there are a handful of courtiers, some of whom are plugged into contemporary life, hence this obsession with getting the Prince of Wales into events like pop and rock concerts, where I have to say he looks so uncomfortable, always suited and booted. There are people who feel he should be doing things which relate to what ordinary people in this country are interested in.
After Eton, the grown-up prince, now 18 and taller than his father, faced the press at Highgrove to announce his gap year plans.
I wanted to do something constructive in my gap year, rather than, I could do quite a lot of work, but I thought this was a bit more of a way of trying to help people out and meet a whole range of different people from different countries, and at the same time helping people in remote areas of Chile.
William went to Chile for 10 weeks with Rally International, a volunteer group ready to live and work together in primitive conditions. He took his turn with the chores.
You just be aware what time it is. Got up at 6:15. It's far too early.
I'm going to feed it to my father till he's sick, so you can see what we went through. I'm so embarrassed about it. I don't know what I'm going to do. I might shoot myself this afternoon, I think. Yeah, try it first, then come back and want some more. I doubt you will. Yeah. No, that's the worst porridge I've ever tasted in my life. That is absolutely hideous. Oh, that is foul. Oh. We're living in an old nursery. It has got a vague carpet. It's got a roof over our heads, which is more than what we've had. Sleeping on the floor in a sleeping bag with about 16 other people all cramped together underneath a slide or a climbing frame or something. With one bathroom. It's like, it's all you need, really. You don't have any secrets in Raleigh. You share everything with everyone. And that's why I found it very difficult myself to start with, because I'm a very private person, and I still am a private person, but I learned to deal with it more. The problem is you can't go anywhere here to get space for privacy. There's always someone around you. You have to be with people. And it's very difficult to get away for your own time. So that's one thing I had to learn to deal with.
Marie was William's team leader, and he followed her orders, taking his turn on the cleaning rota.
Yeah, Marie, she's so canny as anything. She knows where her bread's buttered, doesn't she? That's all right, well, you go and do the loose. No, Marie, don't worry about it, I'll do it then. Oh, brilliant. Well, thanks a lot. Marigolds are now officially a fashion item. Which is why I think I get along with these guys so well as well. They've all come out here to join rallies, to gain their experience and to gain a bit of knowledge about other parts of the world. And we all get along so well because I hope I don't come across as someone who's, that I was trying to be treated differently by the staff or anything. They all treat me the same. The locals treat me the same. And I love having no restrictions,
William helped out in a local nursery, displaying the same easy rapport with children as his mother had. He also kept in touch with Harry by writing frequent postcards home. The Prince, known there as Will, stood in as a disc jockey at a local radio station.
There's big ups to Ruthie, we love you babe, I hear you listening, if you actually listen out there. And for any of you people who are in a bit of a mood for love, this song is for you.
William's performance impressed the Queen.
The Queen's very proud of William. It took her a long time to really get to know him because she didn't see that much of him. But she realises that he has what it takes, in her opinion, to eventually be monarch. He's a very amusing, good, fun guy, but he does know when to stop. And he knows that that the time has to come when you have to be serious. So I think he's very well balanced, which pleases her. And of course, he's a gorgeous looking guy, and the Queen has always liked rather macho, gorgeous looking men, so she obviously very proud of her grandson.
William originally went to St Andrews to study history of art, but he grew unhappy with the course. Friends, including Kate Middleton, persuaded him to change to geography after his first year, rather than drop out of university altogether. Geography was a better choice. He settled down to his studies, determined to succeed and gain a good degree. He consulted his tutor about his last piece of coursework.
And how's the writing up going?
Yeah, the writing up's not going quite so well as it should be. I've got this much notes, but I've only written about 2,000 words, 1,000 words.
And the deadline's getting
pretty close.
Worryingly close now. Yes.
But I'm going to, once I get everything else sorted that's going on around us, I will settle and get stuck into it.
Yes.
So I'll get most of it done.
The student prince worked hard for his finals. This was his chance to shine among his contemporaries. He was also planning to exert his authority when he finished at St Andrews.
I really do want to be in control of my own life, and you know, if I don't agree with what someone's saying or someone's pushing on me, then I won't do it. If I'm wrong and they're right and people tell me that, then obviously I'll change my mind. You know, I'm always open for people saying, you know, I'm wrong, because most of the time I am. But you know, I hate losing control. I think it's very important to you know, see what you want to do and go for it.
At university, William shared student interests like snooker.
That's how you do it. That's how you do it. Secretly, I'm a really good pool player.
While public relations experts had to create an action man image for Charles, there was no need in William's case. He's extremely athletic and a strong swimmer. He also loves diving and surfing. He seems the perfect prince. Harry and William have been close since nursery days. They share many interests, such as polo, but there is an academic gap between them. Harry didn't go to university.
As young brothers, William and Harry were incredibly tight-knit. I think the distance started when William went away to university, and I think Harry found that quite difficult because he'd lost his soulmate, he'd lost his confidant, and I know through friends that he did find that very difficult, and William would come back at weekends, especially to be with Harry.
Harry's troubles reflect the loss of his mother. 2 years younger than William, he was less able to deal with the tragedy. The temptations of nightlife have sometimes proved too much for him. The ever-vigilant press mean a prince has to be careful, even in his private life. Or unwelcome headlines will be the result. Harry gained a reputation for hard partying and hard drinking. Sometimes he lost control and lashed out at photographers. Charles, too, has an uneven temper. He can hardly blame Harry for inheriting it, but his tantrums, swearing and poor team spirit can be embarrassing. And watching it must be nerve-wracking for a concerned father. Hot-headed Harry is not easy to calm, and Charles often doesn't know what to say for the best. His hesitancy has sometimes failed to curb Harry's unruliness. Being second-born can mean second best in the royal pecking order, but Harry has a competitive streak and likes to come first.
Harry has sort of been the one to step into the media spotlight more than William. I mean, he's the one who became associated with girls at a younger age. He was the wild child. He was the one who we saw drinking out of beer bottles, smoking cigarettes at polo matches, and suddenly the focus shifted onto him. William, very much like his mother, downcast eyes, didn't want to get drawn in, preferred to blend into the background. Very hard for a young man who's 6'4", but he's done it pretty well. Harry doesn't seem to mind so much. He doesn't seem to care. He just sort of takes it and deals with it.
William has had the advantage of the palace publicity machine to groom his image. But is he really more like Harry?
I think it's very easy to label William a good boy and very easy to label Harry a bad boy. I absolutely don't think that's the case. I've heard so many stories about William that truly reflect that he is a party animal, he's incredibly gregarious, he's very vivacious. I just think he's more careful than Harry, to be perfectly honest.
The three princes have a special bond. After Diana's death, it was important to present a public image of family unity. But as William once revealed, there can be tensions between them.
We get along, you know, really well, Harry and I and my father. You know, we're a very close family. There are disagreements, obviously, as all families do, and when they are, they're big disagreements. But when there's happy times, we have, you know, really good time. It's just, you know, it's difficult getting all three of us in the same house at one point because obviously father's really busy.
William has taken an interest in Charles's major charity, the Prince's Trust, which helps underprivileged young people to start their own businesses. He's defensive about media criticism of his father.
He's had a difficult time, and you know, it's just sad. I said this last time. I'm sure I use the same words, but I just wish, you know, more of his charitable work was concentrated because he does do a hell of a lot of work, and the Prince's Trust is just an amazing, organisation. And I really hold him in great admiration about the amount of time he gives up to do work here and there.
In June 2005, William graduated with honours from St Andrews University. He had earned his degree without special favours. His girlfriend, Kate Middleton, graduated on the same day. William had tried to shield her from publicity and was annoyed when their secret romance was revealed in the press the previous year. However, Kate has won favour with the public and the palace.
The palace see Kate as a perfect suitor in every respect. She comes with very little baggage. She has all the prerequisites of a princess. She's discreet. She's loyal. She's been a good friend to William. She's been sensible. She encouraged him to stay on at university when his instinct told him that it wasn't for him and he ought to give up. And I think this is exemplified in the fact that she is brought out at very public royal engagements. And that wouldn't have happened with Kate if she wasn't absolutely right, absolutely perfect, and have all of those attributes, which she very clearly does. And this is very much a young woman who is a princess in waiting.
After his graduation ceremony, William must have realised that without Kate's good influence, he would have missed this great milestone. Sadly, Diana didn't live to see either her son's happiness with Kate or the fulfilment of Charles's relationship with Camilla.
I think Diana would be very happy to see William with such a nice girl, and I think Diana would be very happy that Charles ended up with Camilla rather than someone else, because it was Camilla that caused all the trouble in their marriage. And I really, really think that at the end of her life, Diana was not worried by Camilla anymore. And she thought, as I've gone through all this heartache and pain, at least he's ended up with her. It would have been awful to go through all that heartache and pain and him ended up with someone else.
In February 2005, the marriage that had once seemed impossible was announced. Just prior to Charles's wedding, the three princes, who share a passion for skiing, made a trip to Klosters in Switzerland. They agreed to an arranged photo call in exchange for privacy on the slopes. It became clear that William is protective of his father.
Can I ask you how you are feeling, how in particular Princes William and Harry are feeling at the prospect of the marriage?
Very happy.
Bloody William. I can't bear that anymore. He's so... He really is.
Yes, very much so, definitely. As long as I don't lose the rings, I'm all right.
But Charles's words had been picked up by the ranks of pressmen, to the discomfort of his sons.
I think the boys are embarrassed about their father's behaviour in the way sons are often embarrassed by their own fathers outside the royal family. In the way I dare say that Prince Charles was embarrassed as a young man by the Duke of Edinburgh's outspoken remarks from time to time. Having said that, I think they share some of his prejudices. They don't particularly like the intrusion that comes with being a member of the royal family. William in particular still finds it hard to deal with. He's been enormously protective of his girlfriend in a way we've never seen before. And it's understandable if at times the royals sort of lose it when they see someone they don't particularly like in front of them, asking questions they don't particularly want to answer.
On April the 9th, 2005, Charles married Camilla in a civil ceremony at Windsor's Register Office in the presence of William and Harry.
He did need someone to share the burden that's been thrust on him. You know, he's only Prince of Wales by an accident of birth. And anybody who spends any length of time with the royal family knows that this is not a job a sensible person would relish. You don't look forward to it, you know. It's a life sentence and you can never retire. He needs somebody that understands what that involves, what that hideous job of being king in waiting involves. And I think he would have found somebody. He needs a mate. For a long time, perhaps, he just would have been happy with a mistress, but being a king, you can't just have a mistress. You've got to make it all legal and put a nice sort of veneer on it all, so he got married.
Military training was considered as necessary for William and Harry as it had been for Charles. In childhood, both young princes had played at being soldiers. William dressed up in the uniform of the parachute regiment. Harry had some early lessons in tank driving. His ambition to join the army remained into adult life. He went to Sandhurst as an officer cadet after an extended gap year. It was hoped that army discipline would sort out his disorderly behaviour.
I think Prince Harry has come through that period. I think there was a very tricky spell towards the end of his school years at Eton, but the army really was seen as the last chance to sort him out, and by all accounts it has sorted him out. He plays hard, there's no question about that. He enjoys smoking, he enjoys drinking with his friends, but you know what 21-year-old, 22-year-old doesn't, and you know, he's entitled to let off steam. Charles is more concerned about the fact that whenever he does, he seems to get caught in the public eye, and he feels that's very unfair.
Charles joined the Royal Navy in the tradition of his grandfather, King George VI, and Prince Philip, his father, who was on active service in the Navy throughout World War II. Charles served on several ships, eventually commanding the mine hunter HMS Bronington. Away from family and friends for long periods, he relied on the camaraderie of his fellow officers.
Don't believe it for 1 minute.
He also joined the Fleet Air Arm, taking a conversion course to enable him to pilot helicopters on board carriers. This was one part of his training he really did appreciate.
I would just like to say, very briefly, how much I have enjoyed this entire course, entirely due, I think, to the hard work put in by all these splendid chaps in Red Dragon. But thank you all once again for having me here. I've enjoyed it enormously.
William is training to be an officer in the British Army. Before following Harry into Sandhurst, he prepared for the tough regime by spending 2 weeks with the RAF Valley Mountain Rescue Team in Wales. He took part in a rescue exercise. In January 2006, Sandhurst gained its most senior recruit. As a cadet, William would undergo rigorous training in a program which can push recruits to exhaustion. He was still a student when he planned stage 1 of his military career.
Sandhurst itself would be a great place to learn how to lead and to, you know, earn respect.
Cadet Wales threw himself into the role, repeating all the manoeuvres that Harry had done before him. William's training continued, with the army keeping the press at bay.
He's off limits. He can really live the life of a soldier. But I think we're only looking about 18 months now before we see William launched as a full-time royal. They are waiting to do it. They know, the palace, the powers that be at the palace, that William needs to be relevant for the monarchy to continue in its present form.
Harry finished his Sandhurst course with the traditional passing out parade. The Queen and Prince Philip were there to see him. He is now a second lieutenant in the Blues and Royals in the Household Cavalry. William also wants to serve his country in the same regiment when he completes his course.
The fact that there's no way William could go serving on the front line in Afghanistan or Iraq. It's simply too dangerous. After he does his year in the Blues and Royals, he'll do a stint in the Army, a stint in the RAF, and a stint in the Royal Navy, each to get an understanding of what happens. After that, he'll be a full-time royal with engagements.
William and Harry now show their affection for Camilla. While they cherish Diana's memory, they accept that Camilla has made their father happy, and as adults, they have their own lives to lead. William is shown as a prince in touch with ordinary people through the national game of football. Before the World Cup began, he met Wayne Rooney and other members of the England squad to wish them well. He takes his role as president of the Football Association seriously.
The power of football is huge, and I think it needs to be harnessed, and at the same time, the sportsmanship side of football, I think, is a real key issue to focus on.
And it's to get guys like these and girls who are coming through realising, you know, the role they have and the importance and the respect that they can earn being a good footballer and a respectful footballer.
William has helped to train young footballers, just as Harry has coached rugby hopefuls. What does the public now expect for the two princes?
I think what we'll be looking for in both boys is obviously a happy union for them both. I mean, William will obviously be under pressure almost immediately. You know, is this a union that can last? Can the Queen's grandchildren make happy marriages where her own children couldn't? There is no pressure on William in the way there was on his father to marry someone of a noble background. He can marry pretty much whoever he likes, and certainly that applies to Harry too. I mean, Harry's been dating a South African girl off and on for the last 18 months. There's no reason why he shouldn't marry this girl if he should want to.
Chelsea is vivacious, the antithesis of demure Kate. Their wealthy but ordinary backgrounds presented a problem for old guard courtiers.
Chelsea is accepted as the girlfriend, but she's nowhere near accepted as the royal girlfriend in the way that Kate is.
They're forgetting that these girls really have that common type. They do a lot to woo an apathetic public and revive interest in the monarchy.
The Queen paid tribute to Diana.
I remember especially the happiness she gave to my two grandsons.
The Queen has restored popularity in the monarchy since the uneasy days after Diana's death. As Charles's mother has grown older and his sons have grown up, he has had to wait and watch.
Charles has been there in this position, being groomed for the role of the monarch for many, many years. It's been there for him since the beginning. So if he was to hand over, I think perhaps he might feel he'd been cheated of something. I think a lot of this stems from public appetite and public argument. It's the public that would perhaps prefer to see William take power over his father.
William upstages his father, just the way Diana always did. It's very difficult for William. He's more glamorous, he's better looking, he resembles his mother, and he's got a gorgeous girlfriend. Now, anybody like that is going to put somebody who's a bit of an old fogey, approaching 60, terribly in the shade. You know, that's just the way of the world. There's nothing they can do about it. So if William and Kate get married soon, who's going to bother? Who's going to be interested in Charles and Camilla? Already there's a lot of apathy about them.
When Charles visited Australia just before his wedding, he got a poor reception. It was very different to the welcome given the same week to Prince Frederick of Denmark and his Australian-born wife, Princess Mary. She is now considered Kate Middleton's role model. As two of Britain's most important ambassadors, Charles and Camilla try hard, but they're competing against the glamorous image of younger royals at home and abroad. In May 2006, William attended the wedding of Camilla's daughter, Laura, to former Calvin Klein model Harry Lopez. William was now seen in public with Kate. With her expert grooming, we had a glimpse of her potential as his future bride.
He is with Kate and he's found companionship and happiness. At least if he's going to take on this role, there's someone that he loves and trusts and has full faith in that he can go and do that role with. I mean, going into something like that alone must be a terribly, terribly lonely prospect.
William's role will grow significantly in the next few years, and with it, his popularity. The question remains, who will the public want as their next king? William or Charles?